Terra Harvell is a 17-year industry veteran. She's a stylist first and now runs a $13 million annual empire, starting with extensions, and now she helps stylists and owners become CEOs, building businesses they can actually sell. Today, we're going to hear her story, how she got to where she is, advice for those of us looking to do the same, and so much more. Welcome back to the Hairdresser Strong Show. My name is Robert Hughes, and I am your host. And today, I'm with Terra Harvell. How you doing today, Terra?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to chat about all the things.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm glad that when your assistant reached out and to connect, we were in the depths of our conference and that we produce and host, and we had something scheduled. So I appreciate you being flexible and letting us wait until that storm passed. I really do.
Absolutely. Entrepreneurs, we have to be flexible, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, speaking of which, so $13 million empire, starting with extensions, I feel like there's such a big story in there. Why don't we go to back towards the beginning? Like were you a business person before you got into the industry? How'd you get did you just get into the industry as a young, wide-eyed beautypreneur, or were you just excited to do hair? How'd you tell us, let's start there.
Yeah, I love that. I kind of laugh because it's like, were you a person before you ever came into the industry? I came into this industry, I was, 18 years old, right out of high school. But I mentioned that time because I think that's such a profound part of my story. And the reason why is because so many hairstylists start out exactly the way that I did. I was the bottom, 20% of my high school class. I went to public school. So, I remember walking across that stage, getting my diploma, and just thinking, yeah, I had a brother that was valedictorian, right? So it was constant, this comparison. And it was just, I really thought I wasn't smart. I had to take the ACT to get into college and completely bombed that. And so I did go to college for one semester, and that one semester was just full of remedial classes. Because, if you bomb the ACT, they're like, well, you got to go here first before you can take the real classes. And so I remember, sitting in that classroom in college, and I always wanted to go to hair school. That was like, something that I was always very passionate about, something that I was very interested in. But like a lot of hairstylists, and those of you that are listening to this, you totally understand because I came from a family of educators, and it was like, oh, you're taking the easy way out, right? It's like, you're gonna go be a hairstylist. That's just the easy way out. And so I honestly kind of believe that. It's not really that fluffy, that I was just like, no, I'm gonna overcome and all of these things. No, I had no idea what I was doing. I, went straight to cosmetology school and remember, I was able to get some financial aid to afford, the school basically, and got a small loan from my grandmother. And so I got into cosmetology school, and when I got into the cosmetology school, I went to a Paul Mitchell school, and I remember just thinking, okay, I've found my place. This is where I thrive. I'm not a failing student here. I'm not the bottom 30%. And it wasn't really anything other than I just loved the craft, right? But the thing was, when I grew up, I was from a very middle class, family. My mom's a public school teacher. If anybody was raised by school teachers, you know that, you're probably not living too high if you're, living off a school teacher salary. And so, she was a single mom providing for me and my brother. And I really knew that if I wanted to have a bit of a different future, I needed to take a different route. And so from there, I went and I actually sought out, and this makes a lot of sense for my story now. So this will kind of come full circle. I sought out somebody, his name is Kelly Cardenas, who's in the Paul Mitchell world, and I wanted to go work for him only because I saw how people were winning inside of his salon. And really, it was kind of just, it wasn't that fluffy. It was just, I saw they were making a ton of money. And so I was like, hey, I want to move across the country. And I actually did. I had $300 in my bank account. I drove my little Mitsubishi Eclipse across the country to Las Vegas. I'm from Arkansas, and literally got a job with him and found a roommate on Craigslist. And I lived in Vegas for 2 years. But those 2 years were very profound in my career because here's the thing. It was very simple. I was an assistant. And I assisted one hairstylist who had been in the industry for a very long time. And she, refused to do anything but color because that's what she was good at. Um, and I would walk her color clients to the front of the salon and I would check them out for, an average of maybe $300. And that was a lot back then. This was 17 years ago. And then I assisted a stylist that I would walk her clients to the front, and all she did was hair extensions, and they were paying $3,000 a ticket. And so, even this remedial math girl, it wasn't very hard for me to put it together what I wanted to do inside of this industry. And so, from then on, I really became obsessed with hair extensions. And again, this was 17 years ago when hair extensions were kind of taboo. Like it wasn't something women, now they're everywhere and women talk about it and it's like a public thing that people wear them. But back then, this wasn't the case. And so, now I think when I hear people, say things like, oh, my clients will never pay for an expensive, service like that, I'm like, you're crazy because we started back when this wasn't even cool. Now you have the advantage of like everybody wants hair extensions, usually. And so, I got into hair extensions and I honestly just built my entire career. After a couple of years, I moved back home. I worked in a salon before I finally opened my own. But I was obsessed and I was able to, as a stylist behind the chair, working 4 days a week, I was able to do around $750,000 in revenue. And that was because I had primarily all extension clientele. And I did have an assistant, and with that stat, but I want people to understand listening to this, I mean, that's almost $1 million, with one book of business behind the chair. And, that was in a small town. The town that I'm in is not a big city. It's Fort Smith, Arkansas. Look it up. Population 80,000 people. When people travel here, they're like, I'm in the armpit of America. And so, but the thing is like it took me at my peak behind the chair, it took me 72 extension clients in order to make that amount of revenue. And so I wasn't seeking 80,000 people. I wasn't trying to get the whole town in my chair. I just needed a set, 70 to 80 extension clients to make that amount of revenue. And so that was when I had a salon. I'd opened my salon and I was just failing like a lot of salon owners. 80% of salons fail in the first 18 months. And the reason why is because none of us know what we're doing. We don't know how to run a business. And I continued on and I kept the doors of my salon open, even though I know one year I had my husband walked in and threw down a profit and loss statement in front of me. And he said, "You made $8 last year." I said, "Wow, that was a lot of work for $8." And so, um, about around that time that my salon was absolutely failing, this was when the extension, industry took a huge dip in quality. And in 1 month, I replaced about $30,000 of bad extension hair in my salon. And, that's just how we roll. We tried to service these people. They invested in this extension hair and the hair just went to crap. It was tangly and it was terrible. And I honestly, from then on, I said, I'm going to go figure this out. And it took me from then another 2 years, full 2 years, to make connections. I flew across the world to China. I actually found someone that would sit down with me and say, "Hey, you guys are not hairstylists. We are. Let's figure out how to produce hair extensions so that they last and it's a quality product." And so now we actually have a patent technology that we use to create our hair. And now that's how Harvell Hair Company, which is my, massive empire, that I've built on just a dream. And I started that business with $20,000 in my bank account. And honestly, we grew really fast because of the quality of hair. Now, there's a lot of in between in that story and a lot of things that I've had to learn. I still have my salon, but now my salon is, we work out of about 800 square feet. It's a shoebox. But we're doing around $1.6 million and we have a 25% profitability. It's because we're mostly an extension clientele. And now we've developed actually a new salon system. It's called Strata Salon System, where we actually develop stylists. And it's not, we don't just develop their skills, we actually develop their EQ and their leadership skills to mentor other stylists. And that's what helps salon scale. So now we are on a mission to partner with other salon owners with this system. And we're opening salons all over the country. And so that is, I know there's a lot of details there, but that's kind of how I've arrived here. And my specialty, I still have the extension company, of course, and it's thriving and growing really fast. But our focus really is we teach stylists how to do exactly what I did behind the chair, make 750K working 4 days a week. And We also now teach salon owners how to scale their business and be profitable. And then eventually, the hope is that they want to exit or even have the option to exit because their business is valuable. And so that's what we do. That's kind of the story.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, and now I got questions. So let's go back. And so you said you went to school, and you after you got out of school, what was the next step right away? Because you talked about going over to Vegas.
Mhm.
How long from the time you graduated to the time you decided to pull that trigger?
Yeah, I decided before I graduated, I started looking for opportunities and truthfully it wasn't even that inspiring. It was more of just I think I was just like every other stylist and I was like, I want to get out of this town and I never want to come back and I want to do celebrity hair and I want to, work on movie sets and truly that was the dream. And so I started seeking out jobs and landed my position at the Kelly Cardenas Salon
Straight out of
before
school?
I yeah, right out of school. So right when I got that
Okay.
license, I transferred it to Nevada, packed my bags and took off.
Nice. Okay, so and then how long did you assist there before you started taking your own clients?
Yeah, most of about a full year, I was an assistant there. Kind of worked my way through, you really start out as a salon assistant and then you work your way through basically the success of the stylists that work there. So it was really cool. So one of my, last stylists that I was hanging with, she did all extensions and that's why she was so successful. So yeah.
So so you assisted for a year, and during that time, did you do like training on like kind of all things, and or did you like were you allowed to pick like you only wanted to learn about extensions? Like how was that training program in that 1 year?
Yeah, even back then, like with Kelly's salon, he wasn't focused on extensions either because it just wasn't a thing. And so I remember point blank him telling me, hey, if you want an extension clientele, you just have to go out and find one. And so, no, I was really focused on, I learned anything from men's cuts. Kelly had a lot of celebrity men that he, cut there in Vegas. And I learned how to do men's cuts and I learned how to do everything because his view and my view still today is niching down is cool and everything, but when you have no one on your books, you should take everything and be able to learn everything, because that's how you grow and you become a full, hairstylist. You can't just learn one thing and be able to grow. So yeah.
So that's where I was going with this. So I'm happy because like we do as I told you before we started, we do have a lot of relationships with the schools and the students, and that is one of the things. It's like stu so many new talent talk about, and even when they're already in school, they haven't even gotten out of school, and they're already talking about their specialists and niching down,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, at Hairdresser Strong, we think people should do whatever they want, but we just want to make sure that you're wide-eyed. You have your eyes open, you understand the realities, the probabilities of success and the probabilities of failure, the downsides and everything. So just kind of like shed some light on that. Like, how long did you do anything beside, like, how long until you only did extensions? Or did you never really stop doing color and cutting? I mean, if you put someone's extensions in, I'm assuming, are you coloring them
Got to
and
cut
cutting
and
them?
yep, exactly.
Right. So like, what does it even mean to be a niche or extension specialist?
Yeah,
It sounds like you have to be able to cut and color hair also. Can you
absolutely.
talk, can you
Absolutely.
talk a little bit about that for any of the
Yeah.
students or new talent thinking
I
of
love that. And I think you're going to love what I have to say here. Because, and I know probably new people in the industry are probably like, oh, she's old school. And I probably am, I'm sure. But I was able to build a stat. And that's what I always say. I'm like, yeah, but look what I was able to get to. And so, the one thing, the best way that I know how to explain this, inside of my own salon right now with the Strata Salon systems, we only hire assistants. We don't hire stylists. I don't care how long they've been in the industry, unless they have a massive stat and they want to come in and be a part of the culture. That's a little different. But right now in our salon, assistants, they by the time they're out of the assistant program, they're doing on average to $9,000 to $10,000 a month in revenue. And that is like, I'm talking, I have a girl, her name is Lainey, so incredibly proud of her. She just graduated less than a year ago, and she's already doing around 10K a month in revenue. And but the reason why, now she's, we started day one building that extension clientele. But also, here's the thing: when you're an assistant in my salon, you have to do 80 extension rows on a doll head a month. That's, 20 a week. That's how much we have them practicing. And so we still don't wouldn't call them a specialist, right? But they're starting to build that clientele, and by the time they get out of the assistant program, they have anywhere from 20 to 25 extension clients on their books, which is more than the top, 1% of, or I really would probably would say the top 5% of extension artists. But we're still not, hey, you're a specialist. But here's why. We had a perm walk into our salon a few weeks back. And guess who had openings on their books? Lainey, who, does want to be an extension specialist. And I know she looked at our salon management there. She was like, I don't even know how to do a perm. And I will never forget seeing her face, because they said, well, guess you better go figure it out, because you've got
Yeah.
a perm on your books and then you got an opening. And so, it's funny because afterwards I had, a kind of a vision talk with her, and I was like, do you understand why, we did that? And she's like, yeah, I have to learn how to do everything. Knowing those technical skills of doing a perm is what makes you better stylist overall. And so, yeah, I mean, you're not a specialist until you're fully booked in that thing, and that many people trust you to do that service. So that's, if you're still searching for clients and you're, desperate for them, you can't call yourself a specialist. So,
So I this is not a personal opinion or anything, but I hear a lot of like um how do I say this? I would like to push against you and see what how you respond, if you don't mind.
totally.
A little bit of a challenge here. I like to like whenever there's like a controversial point or an argument that's happening on social media, I like to get people who are deep in it to respond. Just because I'm so curious to know everybody's perspective. Everyone's got different perspectives, and not everybody has as much experience to talk to. So, all right. So here's what do you say when people say, and I feel like you might have already answered this question, but just to be explicit, what do you say to anybody who says that these high ticket extensions clients during during like an economic downturn will become price elastic and pull in their spending and like, well, first of all, is tell us, can you talk on that at all? And then second all, does that have you seen that in any of the people that you work with? And if you have seen it, what has been the response or the strategy around dealing with uncertain times? And I like this because we are in, like, what time is it? it's it's
Yeah.
uncertain time. Like, it's for sure. That seems to be the majority of people's feelings. I mean, we see it in the economy, we see it in the macro level. So I think there's a lot of folks that talk to us at Hairdresser Strong about wanting to prepare for uncertain times. So I feel like this is like a really relevant uh, conversation.
Yeah, I think it's hit or miss if you're gonna love my answer, but I feel like you may like it. But I do want to answer it the way that I would in my own classroom. We educate, stylists all over the world. They come here to our headquarters, and I actually answered this question yesterday in a classroom of 40 stylists. And so the first thing that I want to say, I kind of want to start from the stylist perspective, and then I'm going to talk about the actual data that's out there as far as, high ticket
Beautiful.
services and stuff like that. One thing that I always, when I talk about things like this, I never want to run off of emotion. That's my main thing that I teach salon owners and I teach stylists. Let's look at the numbers, guys. Let's look at the metrics. Let's not be emotional about the business, because there's a lot of, like, there's no peace in that, right? And so the one thing that I always say is, I've never in my life met a wealthy person that worries about the economy. And I've never met someone that is wealthy and that is winning that constantly talks about the economy. And so the one thing on a hairstylist, this is something that I want people to understand. I think we get this like we conceptualize when the economy goes bad, it's like the money disappears. there's not like this robber that comes in and like takes the money and it's like the economy's bad because I took all the money. People still have their money, right? And so the next thing that we have to understand is when people spend their money, it's because, and whether they're being more, frugal or whatever the case is, when people have their money, they'll always spend it on what's the value of them to them, right? If there's something to a value to them, they're going to spend their money on it. And so when it becomes being a hairstylist or being a hairstylist, you can't just blend in, great before and afters and great, just photos of, because honestly, great hairstylists and great extension artists, if we're just going to go extensions, are a dime a dozen. They're everywhere, right? Thanks to how accessible education is now. I mean, that kind of is everywhere. And so you kind of have to ask yourself, like, how do I send out and become a value to these people to want to come spend money? And so I think we have to get out of this headspace of like, oh, the economy is going bad, because guys, they still have the money. It's still there. And so I know a lot of women, I know me, I'm not going to give up these hair extensions. If I took these out, you guys would be like, wow, doesn't have any hair. She does not look the same. And so this is a value to me. And a lot of women that don't have the hair that they want feel the exact same way. And so within that, Harper Ellis we opened up in 2019, 2020 hit, all of that happened right after. And, now, the economy's kind of been, I wouldn't even say that it's probably been up if you want to look at the economy data. But, it's kind of been a little bit like this. And now, supposedly it's a little down. I don't really know. So looking at that, our business, and I know other extension business, when we entered this space about 5 years ago, it was about a billion-dollar industry. In the end of 2026, it'll be a $6 billion industry. And so that doesn't tell me that people aren't, and we as a company have over year grown minimally of 35%. And so that doesn't tell me that anyone's pulling back on hair extensions. And so now, the solution to that, I don't want to harp on that without giving a solution. The solution to that is go be of value. Go do 80 rows a month to become the specialist, and then stand out on social media and your marketing to become a value to those people that want to spend that amount of money on their hair, because I promise those clients are a dime a dozen. And the thing is, 30% of women either already have hair extensions or they want them or need them. And so, go and do the math. I just said 72 extension clients plus some color revenue got me to $750,000 in revenue behind the chair. And so, we have 80,000 people in this town. I would assume we probably have, minimally of 40,000 women. I'm just making things up. 30% of that you're telling me could be my client. I don't need that many people in my chair in order to make that amount of money. So I think we have to just reverse engineer the target versus worrying about everyone's pocketbook. But our industry has a really bad problem doing that.
So I hear you on everything you're saying, and I like the vibes. I like the headspace. Um, However, at the same time, I'm wondering, and this is something I think, because I'm not an extension specialist, and so it sounds to me like that mentality works if you have a clientele that isn't price elastic during high unemployment times or high inflation times. But we
Exactly.
saw what happened after COVID, where everyone pulled in their spending significantly, and the high end hasn't. The high end still has not pulled in their spending. I mean, I just saw a piece today or yesterday about consumer spending is still up, but it's in the upper income brackets.
Mhm.
So it sounds to me like with all that data, it sounds to me like your clientele should be in the upper income bracket. So like, is there a person who might like, there's also people that have aspirations, like people who want to save up to like spend the money, who don't necessarily have the money. And those people typically, I mean, historically, they have pulled in spending. And I guess like an argument against that would be that spending in our industry doesn't get pulled back as much as spending in other spaces. So anyway, I just want to drop that on you and see how you respond to that.
Yeah, I think, you're totally right. Something that we teach our, salon owners as well as, the stylists that we work with is like, you go back to the market, everyone wants to teach the dream client avatar. I've seen that segment, so many people are like, who's your dream avatar? Go after that person. It's like, yeah, I get that. But like, also, people aren't going to walk in your door that are nothing like you. You know what I mean? And I want to say this out loud because I know people listening. Like, guys, I came from middle to lower class America. I'm not this like bougie woman out here just like attracting the rich because that no, I've had to like really take a hard, long look in the mirror and go, okay, who do I want to become? Because who do I want to attract? Because you attract what you are. It's the law of attraction. That will never change. It's just the way the human mind works. And so I think as hairstylists, when we're, building, we have to think about those kind of things. Like go take a long look in the mirror. Ask yourself, am I the person that someone who can afford me and afford my value come sit in my chair? And if the answer is no, maybe not, you may want to don't change who you are. That's not what I'm saying, but you can make adjustments to become that person that those type of people want to come sit in your chair. And so that's kind of my, response on that as far as like the solution.
I love that.
So too, I've seen women spend their last dime on hair. We do cherry financing and stuff in our salon. It's because we can see on the back end they get approved for a certain amount, and you're like, oh gosh, they probably don't. If they're doing that, I don't know if they, as a wealth builder, I don't know that I would finance hair extensions, but hey, people do because it's of value to them. And so I think you get a little bit of both. But yeah, the most of the clientele that's going to come in for a higher ticket service are the ones that have the money. So
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I think that that's an important piece that, I was just at Beauty Gives Back. We're in Chicago right now, kind of doing a tourist stuff. We're about to leave after this conversation and go see the Bean and all that deck. So people, by the time people see this, they'll have already seen those pictures. But we
cool.
were at Beauty Gives Back, and Corey from Hairdresser podcast, he was moderating a panel of entrepreneurs, and he said, if you want to, I forget exact words, so Corey, forgive me if I don't put the exact words, but something along the lines of basically start in higher income zip codes.
Mhm.
Like if you want to build a business in these areas. But I mean, and you're not necessarily saying that, but it's kind of the one and the same is like understand your client, your target audience, and tackle them. And I love the law of attraction piece. I love that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
something too I wanted to add really fast.
yeah.
Alex, I don't know if there's any Alex Hermosi fans on here. I love that guy. I think he's a genius.
I've just been turned on to him, and I got his book. That one of those books I'm gonna
Yeah.
read.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely. But his number one thing that he says is, if you want to become rich, solve the rich people's problem.
Yes.
And I think that's true for any business, right? And so I love that because it's the truth. Go find a solution for the type of audience that you need in order to make the amount of money that you want to make. So yeah.
Love it. Okay, we're coming up on our time, so I just have one question, and then I want you to tell us where people can find you, what the type of offerings that you have for people, and then we'll wrap. So first, one question I wanted to make sure I asked you because it's been in my head the whole time we've been talking, but like the conversation has been so good that I didn't want to interrupt it. So, okay, what makes a business sellable?
Yeah. So the one thing that makes a business sellable is no one wants to step in and buy a business that whenever they purchase it, there's no upside, right? And so I want to talk about salons specifically. So if the owner walks out the door and your stylist leaves and possibly the clients leave, likely that business has no value. Also, we can go into the obvious things if you've, gotten into, the EBITDA, the cash flow, all those things, of course, the profitability, all of those things matter. But at the same time with salons, like if your stylist will leave with you when you sell, that business becomes no value, no value. And so you have to figure out, what strata does, and that's what we teach salon owners now. Stylists that come into our salon and grow to be, have high EQs and leadership skills, they become mentors. And then they are able to make 5% revenue share off of anyone that they're training and developing. And so it keeps them loyal to the salon and it gives them an entire new stream of revenue. I'm talking into the six-figure new stream of revenue as the salon scales and gets bigger and bigger, but they don't have to step behind the chair for. And so, that's scaling, right? Scaling is not standing and trading time for money. If you want to scale, you have to make your money make money. And so that's how we're helping stylists do that in all of these strata salons. So, yeah.
Nice. And so, What on that, I guess I have one more question. Like one of the biggest things that we hear from around the country and definitely in our own backyard is this idea of getting having training in your salon. Like I think it's actually an international conversation because the UK is dealing with like the apprenticeship, like the demise of apprenticeships due to actual the way their system is built, created, and legislation. I don't know all the details, but I know I've been seeing a lot of content where they're talking about like apprentices are our future and how we have to stop thinking of do we get an ROI. I just don't see how we can talk like that in America, but that's just me. Like, so, but that is what people are worried about is like, can is it with the entrepreneurial bug like the new talent, younger generation, like they are so entrepreneurial. I'm so excited to work with them. And however, salon owners are weary because I mean, the experiences they're having and the narratives online are painting the younger stylists and new talent as being just coming in to like take some clients and then leave and then go independent. What do you have to say about that?
I have a
What are your
lot to
thoughts
say.
on that?
I have a lot to say about that. I'll try to make it short and sweet, but I think everyone's going to understand what I'm about to say. Um, in the world of just the salon industry, I'm not talking stylist salons, like we have to understand how broken our models are because there's only 24 hours in the day. Stylists, once they maximize their pricing, their demand, what is next for them? And so, as a salon owner, you have to understand how irresponsible you are to build a business that way. And then we want to get like offended and be weary, just like you said, that your business model isn't set up to where people can scale past the 24 hours in the day that they have available. And so, of course, they're going to be that way. Of course, the new generation is going to be entrepreneur because they don't have any other choice. But the reality is, the average salon is a profitability of like 8%. And that also is very, very wild to me. I'm like, I don't know that I would run a business that's only 8% profitable. And so we have to understand that like it's a constant hamster wheel of failure because then those stylists go out and they open salons and they either open booth rental or commission salons where the same situation, everyone's capped, the owner's capped, the stylists are capped, and it's a vicious cycle of failure. And honestly, generational poverty. I want to say that word, and I hope when I just said that, I hope that stings everybody in the gut because that's exactly what we're creating in this industry. And so if we don't create a way that stylists can come in and be mentored and be able to scale past what they can control, which is their time and possibly their pricing. Everyone can control their pricing, but we like to think that we're maximized. People aren't probably going to pay $1 million for a haircut. Maybe they will one day. I don't know. But there is a cap to that. So we have to think of a way that they can scale past just them and their hands and their energy behind the chair. And if we don't, it is a generational just poverty industry, and that word makes me sick because I don't think that has to be the case. And so we have to think outside the box when we have to reinvent the wheel. This whole the models inside this industry make me crazy because they're so broken. So yeah,
That's a I like that answer. And just so any all the Gen Zers out there, you know I love you, so I'm only making sure I address everything.
yeah,
I'm not worried about you. So
of course,
okay,
me
so
either. I have the
yeah,
hardest workers in my salon right now. They're like 21 years old. I'm like, they're rock
that's
stars.
I think that's it. I think actually what we've discovered along our journey is that all the stereotypes of Gen Z are created by people who expect them to do what they want them to do.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you once you get to know them, it's like, oh, actually, they're super aware of the realities of today. And it is, by most data points, it's harder to be successful today in
Yeah.
certain ways. Of course, we have tech and social media, so they have that advantage. But like they have a hill to climb, and they have to leverage different tools, and they have to think differently. And I did an interview with the founder or one of the founders of Artist on Go, DM, and he said that our business model was created during the industrial age, and the industrial age was customer, product, or service,
Mhm.
and they had people in between that were cogs in a wheel. And our business model is designed this same exact way. You know, we want to think that a stylist is as expendable and replaceable as a factory worker or a tele person or anybody in an office. I mean, if you really think about it, other than the super highest levels of the in the C suites and stuff, like a lot of those people can be replaced with another person with a similar skill set. But in our industry, and if you have a salon and you think that way, it's going to be really hard to retain people. And so I think the business model conversation, I love that you brought that up.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you so much. So tell us, you mentioned it in the beginning, about some of the stuff you do, but give us another kind of pitch on the stuff that you have to offer and where people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Any you can go to my Instagram. It's the Terra Harvell. It's Terra. And you can go there. You can click the link in my bio. It tells you how to access everything that we do. But truly, like, if I don't really work with salon owners that aren't already diving into the world of extensions because your margins are so much smaller. And so, what we do first is we offer people what we call the Extension School of Business, where we teach you everything that we did to go make 750K behind the chair. A lot of salon owners are doing that to teach their stylists in their salon how to do that. We have so many salon owners, becoming massive amounts of profit coming into their business because of the margin of the service. And so, yeah, that's how we work with people. But you can go also to Harper Ellis Hair Co. That's the Instagram to Harper Ellis, and sign up there and just call and ask questions. We're an open book. We have a team that's concierge, people calling in all day, every day. They're like, what in the world are you guys doing over there? So that's how you can access us. And of course, harpellishair.com is another one. But I'd love to work with anybody that's listening. Yeah.
Awesome. And all that will be in the description below. So definitely check out Tara. This has been a pleasure talking
Yeah.
with you. And I hope I mean, I feel like there's so much more I would like to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Now that we've established your story and we gotten to know you, I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
Sure. For sure. I'd love to have you on my podcast as well. So, yeah, hopefully
Awesome.
we can meet up and chat. And I love that. And thank you guys for having me. I love this industry and love what it's about. And now we've got to change some things to grow. So, thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Until next time.
Bye.